Okay, see here in the topic of returns and assessment means assessment procedure. Last lecture I had given you this flow chart, and as per this flow chart, now our topic will proceed ahead. And as per this flow chart, we have already finished the theory of returns. Next theory is of inquiry, and after that we'll do the theory of assessment, and in that again there are various types of assessment. Okay, so now next thing is what? Inquiry. For this there is section 142. Now tell me, in section 142 what we will study? What kind of inquiry is done? Why inquiry is done? Who does that inquiry? And how that inquiry is done? These are certain questions you should think. Firstly, what kind of inquiry? Inquiry means what? Inquiry about finding out the true income of the assessee. Because see, in the return, assessee might have disclosed his income, but we cannot trust the return. Return might be false also. It might contain false data also. So since income tax department they do not trust your return, they want to do inquiry and find out what is your true income. And to find out your true income, they have to do something, because they cannot simply rely on the computation shown in the return, because return is filed by the assessee and assessee will obviously do some manipulation in the return, so they cannot trust your return. So once you file the return, you know what they do? They just go through your return once, and little bit doubt also if they have, they keep the return aside, and then they start doing inquiry. And the objective of the inquiry is to find out the true income of the assessee, because he doubts the income shown in the return. Now he wants to know the true income. And for this, who will take the initiative? Assessing officer. Assessing officer means AO. AO is the assessing officer. He will be doing inquiry. Okay. So who does inquiry? Assessing officer. And why inquiry is done? To find out the true income of the assessee. And why you want to know the true income? Because he doesn't trust the income shown in the return. So now how this inquiry process takes place, for that there is a detailed section 142. So now see, there are three methods of inquiry. Look at the screen. There are three methods of inquiry. Inquiry under 142.1, then 142.2 and 142.2a. Under all these three sections, the objective is common. What is the common objective? To ascertain and determine the true income of the assessee, because we don't trust your return. Okay. Now for that, what does section 142.1 say? You know, as per this section, the assessing officer can send a notice to the assessee. And you know, this notice is called RAI notice. This RAI is a short form made by me. Law does not say RAI. It is a short form created by me to remember. In this, actually there are three notices. Can you see? RAI. So I repeat, as per section 142.1, the assessing officer can send a RAI notice. And RAI notice means in that first alphabet is R. R for if an assessee has not filed a return, he will get a notice कि Baba, you have not filed a return, please file the return. I mean, this kind of notice you can expect. But who can expect this? A person who has not filed a return. Many times we think, let's not file the return only. Who will enter into this headache, filing the return and all that? I will not file the return only. So in case you don't file the return, so they are not going to sit silent. They are going to send you a notice under section 142.1, and it will require you to submit the return within the time prescribed in the notice only. Means that notice will mention that since you haven't filed the return up to the due date, please file the return now within 10 days, 20 days, 25 days. Number of days will be prescribed in the notice, and within that prescribed time you have to file the return. So imagine getting a notice like this. So that is a sign of what? Right now, so they are just asking for the return, but they will not sit silent with return. They are going to do many more things because there are so many people not filing the return, but they are giving notice to me only. That means I am gone. That means assessor should feel like this. There are so many people not filing the return in India, but specially income tax department is sending me notice. That means something is risky. Means now they are not going to sit silent with my return only, they are going to do further inquiry. So getting a notice wherein they demand your return, that means it is a sign of they are going to make detailed inquiry on you. Otherwise, see, if they are not intending to do detailed inquiry on you, why will they bother whether you filed a return or not? Actually, there are many people who don't file the return. Everyone do not get the notice. Which notice? Notice under section 142(1). Basically, this notice requires you to file the return. So there are many people not filing the return, but they don't send the notice to everyone. But since you got this notice, that means you are gone now. They are not just going to ask you to file the return, they are going to do further inquiry also. So this is one thing which can happen under section 142(1). But as I said, there are three types of notice. There are three types of notice under section 142(1). Means within 142(1) there are three notice. In that, R was, what was R? Requiring the assessee to file the return. Now there is one more notice, A for accounts. Means this notice will require you to produce your accounts. Trading, P&L, balance sheet, final accounts, etc., cash book, ledger, journal, whatever. Under this notice, you will be asked to submit your accounts. A for accounts. Then I stands for any information which AO thinks fit, he can ask for. Basically, 142(1) talks about three types of notice, which you can remember as RAI notice. And what is R from RAI? Requiring the assessee to file the return. If he hasn't filed the return till now, then accounts, requiring the assessee to produce the accounts. Means imagine assessee has filed a return, but looking at the return, he feels everything is messy. He needs your accounts. Then he can ask for your accounts. And even after getting your accounts, he is still not satisfied. So he can ask for further information. Now further information can be anything. He can ask for the details of your bank accounts. Just give me the details of your various bank accounts or your bank statement, anything. Information can be anything. Information means it is I from RAI. I for information. Only thing is, return is a specific thing he is asking for. Accounts also, it is something specific. Books of accounts. I can be anything. Information can be anything which he needs. For example, he can say, give me the details of TDS deducted during the year for different parties. He can ask such information also. Or he can also say, give me the details of cash payments made during the year. Or he can say, give me the details of payment made to relatives during the year. Any kind of information which he thinks fit, he can ask for. Means if you are trying to define, sir, what information? There is no definition for this. What law says? Any information which AO thinks fit, he can ask for. So this is section 142(1). Are you getting the feeling of inquiry? See, getting these notices, that means what? Income tax department is behind you. You should be scared. Obviously, you will be scared only if you have done some wrong things. If you honestly filed your return, let them do inquiry. No one can do anything if you are honest. But if you have done some manipulation in the return, if you have shown some false income, then that means you have to be scared. Because these notices are not just notices. After these notices, many more things will happen. And they will find out your true income and decide your true tax. And in case you have paid less, they will ask for the more amount. They will ask for the balance amount which you have not paid. So this was 142.1. So see, the provision says like this. As per this section, by heart this now, as per this section, the AO can send a notice to the assessee requiring him to file the return if he has not filed it up to the due date, requiring him to produce accounts and documents, requiring to furnish such information as he thinks fit. So this is section 142.1, which is popularly called as RAI notice. RAI, RAI notice. Although it is RAI notice, but inside there are 3 notices: return filed, file the return, submit the accounts, and produce information which assessing officer might need. So this was section 142.1. Then section 1, wait, let me highlight this we have done. As per section 142.1, he will send a notice which is called RAI notice. Now see, you might have a doubt, sir, when do we get this notice? Precisely when will you get this notice? So see, whatever I am discussing under section 142, you know the period of section 142 is what? This thing. During this period, any time you can expect a RAI notice. During which period? This period which I have highlighted. See, once the due date of return expires, after that income tax authority, they will take the charge. So whatever I am explaining in section 142, in case you think about the doubt that sir, when will this 142 happen? To 142 period I have highlighted in the drawing. Can you see I have 142 inquiry takes place, and it is not necessary that 142 inquiry may happen. For example, I said they will send you RAI notice. It is not necessary that they will send RAI notice to everyone. They may send, they may not send. But if they send, they will send during, during this period. Because this is the period of section 142. And you know why did I say during this period only? Because what is the heading of section 142? Read. Read the heading. What is the heading of section 142? Inquiry before assessment. That means it is inquiry for the purpose of assessment, and it is done before assessment. So feel the words before assessment. So before assessment means when assessment is done. So that's what I had explained in the previous lecture. Assessment is done latest by this date. Assessment is done latest by this date. So when assessment has to be done latest by this date, so it is but obvious that 142 inquiry will take place before this time. And obviously, see, look at the screen. It cannot happen in this time, because this is the time given to the assessee to compile and file the return. So they cannot harass us during this period. So at the most 142 can happen during which period? During this period only. So this you should keep in mind. So whenever you are studying 142, you should visualize when this will happen. So this will happen during this period. Okay. And one more thing I said, it is not necessary that 142 inquiry will happen. It may happen, it may not happen. Okay, so 142.1 is done. Then section 142.2. This section says, in order to obtain full information about the income of the assessee, AO can make any such inquiry as he thinks fit. You know what does this section mean? This section says that under 142.1, we had sent a notice to assessee, and there are high chances that assessee might not give sufficient and true information. Although the AO has got right to ask for information from the assessee, but assessee should give true information. There are high chances that assessee might give incomplete information, false information. So in such case, the AO might feel dissatisfied. Even after sending the notice to the assessee, even after getting the information from the assessee in RAI notice, he is still dissatisfied. So what law says, in case you feel that assessee has not given sufficient and full information in 142(1) notice, then you can do anything. Like you can talk to GST department, you can talk to some third party, you can talk to the customers of assessee, you can talk to the suppliers of assessee, you can do anything. So basically, under 142(2) what happens? AO will gather information from other sources other than the assessee. Because see, if he wants information from assessee, he can send notice to the assessee. Under 142(1), what is happening? We are asking the assessee to give information. What was I in RAI? Information. So if I have to ask something from assessee only, then I can send a notice to assessee under 142(1). But then we cannot trust the assessee. Even if he asks some XYZ information, he might not give that sufficient information which will make me dissatisfied. So in such case, what will I do? I tried asking from assessee. Now what is the other resort for me? To try other sources. So that's why 142(2) is popularly known as information from other sources. Other sources means other than assessee, you will talk to the world, but not to the assessee. If you want to talk to the assessee only, then 142(1) is sufficient. There is no restriction in 142(1) that you cannot ask this, you cannot ask this, you can ask anything. If you analyze one thing, the alphabet I in the code word RAI is what? Any information which AO thinks fit, he can ask for. So that automatically means what? You can ask anything from assessee. Now even after asking from assessee, still you want to do something, then obviously 142(2) will be helpful. And this section empowers the AO to gather information from other sources. And if you say what other sources, it can be anything. Law is not defined. But usually what happens, they talk to GST department. Because see, under income tax, tax is on profit. And profit is made up of sales. And sales are also reported in GST. So we can counter check. And GST department usually knows the authentic sale. In income tax, sale is just a figure. Income tax department is mainly interested on the net profit. So sales reported in income tax is many times false. Because income tax people, they focus on net profit. But GST is totally targeted on sales. What is GST? It is on the goods sold, you collect GST from the customer. So usually GST department will have authentic amount of sales. So income tax department will counter check your sales with GST department. But this is just one example. There can be n number of things which can happen under section 142(2). Basically 142(2) doesn't define कि talk to GST department. Talk to anyone and find out the true income of the assessee. Now see, what is the text of this section? Text means what is the legal sentence of the section, Listen to the sentence and try to by heart. By hearting is must. Simply by understanding the thing, you don't satisfy the ICAI. You have to literally memorize. So now memorize this sentence. As per 142(2), what will happen? See, in order to obtain full information about the income of the assessee, AO can make any such inquiry as he thinks fit. In this sentence, nowhere I said information gathering from other sources. What law says? In order to gather full information. You know why the law is using the word full information? This sentence is written in the act. Which sentence? In order to gather full information about the income of the assessee, AO can make any such inquiry as he thinks fit. So why the law is using the word full information? Because law feels under 142(1), we didn't get full information. We got incomplete information. And why do you feel that we didn't get full information? Because under 142(1), we are asking information from the assessee. and there are chances that assessee might not give full information. So keeping that in mind, the provision of section 142(2) says that in order to obtain full information, AO, you can do any such inquiry as you think fit. Now, they are not saying other sources, inquiry from other sources, but then it is understood, na? If we want something from assessee, so we can call for it by sending 142(1). Now, even after calling information from assessee, still you want more information, so obviously it is information gathering from other sources. See, I have to justify why, because law nowhere mentions information from other sources, but it is understood. So you can remember informally that under 142(2) you are gathering information from sources other than the assessee. But tell me, repeatedly I am telling information. Basically what information? Anything which will help AO to know what is your real income. Don't forget the basic theme. The basic idea was what, your return the assessing officer is not able to trust. Since he is not trusting your return, he wants to know what is his real income. So the entire mission is to identify your real income. But for that, first we tried to gather the information from assessee. And it might happen that AO is satisfied with the information from assessee, then it's okay. But in case he feels I am not satisfied with the information provided by the assessee, then he can gather information from other sources. But in my explanation, sometimes a misunderstanding might come, See, what misunderstanding? Students misinterpret as what, okay, that means first the AO should try 142(1). If he is not satisfied with the information provided in 142(1), then he should do 142(2). Okay, it's like this. No, it's not like that. It is not necessary to try 142(1) first. The AO can directly jump to power given under section 142(2). Why did I say power? These are powers of assessing officer. I can also say what assessing officer can do. What is his power? Power in relation to the assessment. So these are basically powers only, na? And it is not necessary that he has to first use his power under 142(1). Many times what assessing officer thinks, what is the point in asking the information from assessee? These assessees are cheaters only. They never provide full information. Why should I even waste my time in sending notice and waiting for his information, which is usually the false and bogus information? Why should I waste my time? So he can directly jump to other sources. Even that can happen. So in short, what AO will do, it is his choice. He might first try 142(1), and then if not satisfied, then he will take resort to 142(2), or he might directly jump to 142(2). But whatever it is, his objective is to find out the real income of the assessee. 2 sections are done. Now the third section is most important, and let me tell you, it is very lengthy. But before that, I want you to by heart the provisions of these 2 sections. Let me know the exact text, how you will write in exam. Obviously, they don't ask a straightforward theory question. Usually the questions are in the pattern of situation based. So if a situation based question comes, you will have to start with the provision only, na? Although they will not say, write a note on section 142. The questions in CA final will be case study based, means it will be situation based. In this situation, what is your opinion? The question will be like that. But then we cannot directly express our opinion. Na? No, this was right, this was wrong. To express our opinion, first we have to give the provisions of law. So that provisions of law you have to by heart also. So by heart, tell me, how will you write 142(1) provision in exam? So see, I will say once and you have to by heart once only, okay? As per section 142(1), the AO can send a notice to the assessee requiring him to file the return if he has not filed up to the due date, produce the accounts, or furnish such information as he thinks fit. Repeat. As per section 142(1), the AO can send a notice to the assessee requiring him to. Wait. Whenever in my sentence I use the word notice, you will observe after that immediately requiring him to, these words will appear. See, this is for the first time I am calling a sentence of notice, na? But there will be so many sections where notice, this word will be used. So by heart now only, okay, whenever in a sentence the word notice comes, immediately after that you have to write requiring him to. And obviously these notices are sent to the assessee only. So I am just making you by heart in a simpler way. Whenever in a sentence the tone of notice comes, immediately the following words will be requiring him to. So now observe this and by heart to see. As per section, which section? 142(1). The AO can send a notice to the assessee requiring him to file the return if he has not filed up to the due date, or produce accounts, or furnish such information as he thinks fit. Then, what is the text of section 142(2)? In order to obtain full information. While saying this, you should feel under 142(1), this assessee gave only half of information, incomplete information. Now I want full information, I will do anything. Speak. In order to obtain full information about the income of the assessee, the AO can make any such inquiry as he thinks fit. And usually any such inquiry means he will start gathering information from other sources. Other than assessee, he will talk to the world like GST department, etc., etc. Then, next section, section 142(2)(a). This section is called special audit. Look at this. This section is on special audit. Means what you know? Under this section, the assessing officer will look. He will order the assessee to get his accounts audited. You know, when he will feel like getting your accounts audited, in case assessing officer thinks your accounts are really messy, it is so complicated. Imagine I have accounts in my hands, books of accounts, and looking at the books of accounts, what assessing officer feels, everything is wrong, everything is messy, it is a confused accounts. So he might feel that your accounts need to be checked. Your accounts need to be audited. An audit may have been done already. Usually assessee files a return after getting it audited. Na? So even if your audit is already done, if assessing officer feels that our accounts are complicated, they are not true, they are not reliable, he can send you a direction asking you to get your accounts audited. Means even this is the power of assessing officer, that he can send you a letter. Actually you will get a letter at your home. Usually nowadays you get letter by way of email, but earlier the letter used to come by way of speed post. So imagine a speed post kind of letter comes, so physical letter imagine. So you know what will be written in the letter? You have to get your accounts audited. But nowadays the letter doesn't come physically by speed post, it is sent through email. But whatever, whether through email or speed post or physical letter, the letter will mention what? That you have to get your accounts audited. But then in exam, will you write the word letter? Assessing officer will say, let's send a letter. Is it a love letter? You cannot use the word letter. No, that's what I wanted to say. You cannot use the word notice also. You have to use the word direction. Section 142(2)(a) uses the word direction instead of the word notice. There is a thin line of difference between notice and direction. Both are kind of a letter only given to the assessee. But when assessing officer wants something from you, give this, give that, furnish this, furnish that, so he will usually send a notice. But whenever assessing officer wants to order you something, do this, get this done, it's my order. So that order tone comes in the word direction. The word direction has the tone of order, means it's kind of AO is dictating you. It is my order that you have to get your accounts audited. So then we use the word direction. But under notice what we say, produce your accounts, furnish this information, give me this, give me that, give me this, give me that. So when you want him to give you something, so usually the word is notice. But when you want to order him, the word is direction. And here basically the assessing officer is ordering you to get your accounts audited. But why is he asking you to get your accounts audited? Because see, if audit is done, assessing officer will come to know your real net profit. Because under audit what we do, a chartered accountant will check your books of accounts, and by checking the books of accounts some mistakes will be discovered, and in that process a right net profit will be determined. And that is what is the objective of assessing officer. Income tax is on the net profit. Now whether your net profit is true or not, that needs to be checked. And who is the best person who can check your accounts? Best means who is the only person who has got authority to check your account is chartered accountant. But here the audit will be done by not your CA. It will be done by a CA nominated by Income Tax Department. Income Tax Department will nominate that so and so will be the chartered accountant. With the help of this chartered accountant, you have to get your accounts audited. Because see, assessee's chartered accountant is on the side of assessee. He will always favor the assessee. So if assessee has done some blunder, he will approve that blunder. Okay, the books are true and fair. Usually the CA who is on the side of the assessee, he will always favor assessee. So that Income Tax Department also knows. That's why they are asking you to get your accounts audited under this section, not through your CA. It will be through CA nominated by Income Tax Department. And Income Tax Department, they already have a panel of chartered accountants. Panel means there is a list of chartered accountants. So and so associates, ABCN associates, ABCN company. In this way they have got a panel of CA firms. And from that panel, anyone will be nominated and that firm will do your audit. Section 142 2A is going on. See how to write this answer in exam. As per this section, which section? 142 2A. The AO can send a notice, don't write notice. The AO can send a direction to the assessee requiring him to get his accounts audited by a CA nominated by Income Tax Department. This you have to literally by heart. See, I can say fast because I am teaching this since so many years, since more than 25 years. But you need to by heart properly, because only when you write the answer in this language, you get the marks. See, ICAI doesn't expect you to write the bare act language. But at least the bare act language which I have modified in my way, at least remember my modified language. Actually, so if you see the bare act, it is even more complicated to by heart. I have simplified it. At least the simplified version you need to by heart. And you know why by hearting is must? See, when a question on special audit comes, actually the question will be not like this, write a note on special audit. The question will be situation based. A situation will be given where you have to express your opinion. But as I said, you cannot directly express your opinion. You have to write the legal provision. So how will you write the legal provision of 142(2)(a)? As per this section, The AO can send, instead of send, you can also use the word issue. Issue a notice, send a notice, it's one and the same. So, as per this section, the AO can issue or send a direction. Direction is a letter only, but that letter has a sound of ordering you. So, AO can send a direction to the assessee, requiring him, I told you na, after the word notice or direction, whatever, you have to use the word requiring him to. So, the AO can send a direction to the assessee requiring him to get his accounts audited. You know, here many students write requiring him to audit. You have to write requiring him to get his accounts audited, because assessee will not do the audit. He has to get it done from a CA. So your language should be requiring him to get his accounts audited by a CA nominated by Income Tax Department. Precisely, it is not Income Tax Department. You know what law has said? Nominated by CIT or CCIT. Means either Commissioner of Income Tax or Chief Commissioner of Income Tax. Any one of these two persons will nominate that who should be your chartered accountant. See, earlier I said casually, nominated by Income Tax Department. But Income Tax Department is a big department. There are so many employees. Inside the department, who is going to nominate? CIT or CCIT? See, the person who is sending you the letter of direction is assessing officer. But who should be your chartered accountant? That assessing officer does not have the authority to nominate. Assessing officer is a person of lower grade. His senior. Who's senior? Assessing officer senior. And his senior is CIT. And his super senior is CCIT. They will nominate who should be the chartered accountant. Assessing officer has got simply authority to give you the order. Get your accounts audited by CA nominated by my boss. By my boss means, who is the boss of AO? CIT or CCIT. Now see, this was just roughly I have explained what is 142 2A. Now we have to go in depth. Now we have to go into the depth of 142 2A. See here. Actually, this section has got 4 things. D, C, R, E. You can remember as a keyword. What was the keyword? D, C, R, E. Once I tell you the full form, you will come to know the importance of this. But how to pronounce this? Duckray. Duckray. How to pronounce this? Duckray. Now in Duckray, what does D stands for? Direction. A direction will be sent to the assessee requiring him to get his accounts audited by CA nominated by CIT or CCIT. This I already taught, that's why I said in fast. So what is D? D for direction. C stands for compulsory. It is compulsory to get your accounts audited under 142 2A, even if your accounts are already audited. Because see, whenever a letter like this goes to the assessee, which letter? Direction under section 142 2A. What will be the immediate reaction of the assessee? Why audit? I have already done my accounts audited by paying fees to a chartered accountant, and after the audit was done, I had submitted my return. So since my audit is already done, why the hell I should get my accounts audited again? So people will have that thinking. That's why law says, Baba, even if your accounts are already audited, you have to do it again. Because that audit which you have already done was a routine audit. And we also know what happens in that audit. Your chartered accountant might be your family friend. He might submit any kind of report saying everything is true and fair. But God only knows what is true and what is fair. So we don't trust that audit. This audit we are doing for the purpose of proper inquiry. We want to know your real income. So we don't rely on that audit, because that audit was a routine formality audit. This audit you will have to do at any cost. That means what? Even if your accounts are already audited before you file the return. Usually before you file the return, your accounts are already audited, especially big assessees. Big assess means assessees whose turnover is more than 1 crore, they are subject to tax audit. And even if not more than 1 crore, if you are a company, then under Companies Act, you have to get your accounts audited. So whether your accounts are already audited or not audited, irrespective of that, this audit has to be done. And under this section, there is no turnover limits. They can ask a person whose sales is only 5 lakhs to get it audited. Means here you cannot argue, my sales is only 5 lakhs. I am not liable to get my accounts audited. We have heard that audit is required when turnover exceeds 1 crore. See, 1 crore threshold is for section 44AB. 44AB? 44AB is a famous section for tax audit. This section has put the limit of 1 crore threshold. But then under 142(2)A, it is a special audit. Special means special. This audit says whether your turnover is only 2 lakhs or 20 crores, whether your audit is already done or not done. This audit has to be done once AO orders you. And from a CA nominated by CIT or CCIT. And one more thing special about this audit. Usually the audit which is done, what are the forms you fill? 3CB, 3CD. But under this audit, the form is also different. Form 6B. I don't know whether you experience this thing in your real life articleship. But this is a form of audit report whenever a person is directed by assessing officer to get his accounts audited. Actually, you don't have to remember the form. I am just giving you for your knowledge so that you can distinguish in your mind that it is different from routine audit. In routine audit, we have to see turnover exceeding 1 crore, then audit, and that is through our CA, and that is in form 3CB, 3CD. But this is a different audit. Here, irrespective of your turnover, whether your audit is done, not done, this has to be done only. And this is within objective of inquiry. And here there is nothing like 3CB, 3CD. Here the form is form 6B. And here it is not your CA. It is CA nominated by CIT, CCIT. Basically, I wanted to distinguish this thing. That's why I even told you the form number also, form 6B. Whereas this form number you are not supposed to by heart. You will not even find in the study material. Just for knowledge, I am saying a special form is to be filled in this special audit. And that form is form 6B. So see, actually I was discussing 4 points in row, Dakre. In that, 2 points I did. D stands for direction. C stands for compulsory, even if audit already done. Next alphabet is R. R for report of the audit. Should be submitted by the assessee to the AO within the time prescribed by AO. Basically, this point says what, once you are directed to get your accounts audited, it's not that you take months and months. You will be given a definite time that within 20 days, 40 days, 50 days, I want the report of audit. I means who? Assessing officer is saying. Assessing officer says that I want the audit done and the report submitted to me on my desk within 40 days or 50 days or 60 days. One number of days will be prescribed in the letter. Which letter? The letter which we call it a direction. So third point was what? The report of audit should be submitted by the assessee to the AO. Who will give to whom? First the CA will make the report and CA will hand over to the assessee. Then what law says? The assessee should submit. The assessee should submit to the assessing officer within the time prescribed by AO. And the time prescribed can be anything. But your extension is possible. In case assessing officer has told you, get your accounts audited within 100 days. Means submit the audit report within 100 days. 100 days is just an example. Huh? So 100 days was prescribed. Now if assessee says 100 days is not sufficient, the CA which you nominated, he is so slow, he has not even finished this thing, that thing, God knows when the audit will be done, please extend the time. This is a request made by assessee to AO. So in such case, AO has got authority to extend the time also. But time can be extended up till maximum 180 days. Extension is the total time. Total means total. Original plus extension. So original time allowed was 100 days. So extra days will be 80 days. No, people misunderstand that you will get 180 days extension. 180 days is not the extension. You can extend up to 180 days. So actually 180 days is the total time, which includes original time plus extension. So tell me, if originally AO has given you a time of 150 days to submit the report. Original time allowed was 150 days. So after 150 days, how much extension you can expect? Only 30 days. So 30 days extension is possible, and that also can happen multiple times. Means once he extended by 5 days, then he extended by 10 days. This way extend up to maximum of 180 days. And this 180 days you have to literally by heart. This is not my example. By heart 180 days. 180 days, 180 days, 180 days. And you know what is the logic of 180 days? 180 days is kind of half of the year. 180 days is kind of half of the year. Usually a year is of 365 days, and tentatively half of that, exactly half is 182.5. But tentatively 180 days is kind of 6 months. Do you know what is the mentality of law? To maintain books of accounts you require 12 months. But to check you require less time. So the books which can be maintained in 12 months can be checked in 6 months. Even if you are an assessee like Reliance, Ambani, whatever may be the size of a business, when you can maintain the books of accounts in a period of 12 months, in audit, so you have to simply check. So checking should happen little bit faster. Means 12 months you need to maintain books. Books are maintained over the period of 12 months, April to March. So when you need 12 months to maintain the books, so obviously to check the books you should need less time. So less means instead of 12 it is half, means 180 days. Means this is the thinking of the law which I am sharing with you. So whatever it is, the rule is audit report should be submitted within time prescribed by assessing officer. However, this time can be extended, but the total time after extension should not exceed 180 days. 180 days is fixed. You know, usually students, what mistake they do in the exam, what they write, audit report should be submitted in 180 days. Wrong. You cannot write a statement like this. Audit report should be submitted in 180 days. What's wrong in this? 180 is after extension. The proper sentence is what? Audit report should be submitted within the time prescribed by AO. And then you have to write, however, this time can be extended, but the total time should not exceed 180 days. Dakre, D, C, R, E. So what was D? The AO will send a direction requiring the assessor to get his accounts audited by a CA nominated by CIT or CCIT. What was C? Audit is compulsory even if the accounts are already audited. R for report. Report should be submitted by the assessee to the AO within the time prescribed by AO. However, this time can be extended, but the total time should not exceed 180 days. Then last alphabet E. Can you guess what is E? Expenses of the audit. Expenses of the audit including remuneration of the chartered accountant shall be determined by CIT and CCIT, and it will be paid by government. It will be paid by government. You know, it is shocking to hear this, that audit expenses will be borne by government. It's not believable, but it is like this only. For so many years, the rule was what? Even these audit expenses were supposed to be borne by the assessee. But somewhere the law felt it is something unfair, because poor assessee has already get his audit done once. Now assessing officer has a doubt, but now doubt is just a doubt. Now you never know what is the reality. You can also have a doubt on a genuine person, and just to clear your doubt, you're asking the accounts to be audited, and that also expense assessee should bear. It's not fair. That's what law felt. That's why since so many years the rule has been amended. This amendment is not a new amendment. It is since so many years the rule has been like this only. Expenses will be paid by government. But earlier what was the law? For example, when we were students, we have studied what? Expenses will be borne by assessee. But then law felt it is not fair. Already assessee has done his audit once before he filed a return. So he has borne the expense. Now why should he bear the expense again? And on the top of that, the income tax department has a doubt. And they have the doubt, and doubt means it is just a doubt. Who knows, in reality, assessee might be a genuine person also. Just to clear his doubt, you are asked to get your accounts audited. Na? But then some students have the doubt. Sir, what if after the audit we realize that assessee was not a genuine person? He has made the accounts totally false, and audit gave us the reality. Still expense will be borne by government. Still expense will be borne by government. See what law expects from assessee, you simply cooperate in making your accounts available to the CA nominated by us. Let him check. Don't worry about the expense, we will bear. We have the doubt, we are ready to bear the expense. But at least you cooperate in making your accounts available, so that a chartered accountant who will be nominated by us, he should be able to do your audit. And you don't worry about the expense that we are going to bear. Just a moment. So the expenses will be borne by government. But did you listen to my sentence which I said sometimes back? Expenses shall be determined by CIT or CCIT. Means it is CIT or CCIT who will decide how much we have to pay to the chartered accountant, how much will be the out of pocket expenses, means how much has to be spent on the audit. This will be decided by CIT, CCIT. But when it comes to payment of the expense, CIT will not pay. Why will CIT, CCIT pay? He is an employee of income tax department, and employees will pay the expense. Only thing is CIT, CCIT has got the authority to determine what should be the amount spent on the audit. Because that law cannot, means government cannot spend any abnormal amount on the audit. Because after all, they just have a doubt. They have a doubt on the profit shown in your books of accounts. And just to clear the doubt, they cannot spend abnormal amounts on the audit. So that's why law says CIT or CCIT. You decide a reasonable amount which should be spent on the audit, and you determine. And as far as payment is concerned, assessee will not have to pay. Government will bear the expenses. So this was about expenses. So see, what were the 4 points? Look at the screen. Duckray, Duckray, Duckray. In Dakre, what is D? D for direction, C for compulsory, R for report, E for expenses. Now tell me, how will you write all this in exam? Tell me all these 4 sentences one by one. Direction means as per this section, the AO can send a direction to the assessee requiring him to get his accounts audited by a CA nominated by CIT or CCIT. Then compulsory audit under this section. This section means which section? 142 2A. Audit under this section is compulsory even if the accounts are already audited. Then what is this R? The report of the audit should be submitted by assessee to the AO within the time prescribed by AO. However, this time can be extended, but the total time should not exceed 180 days. Expenses. Wait. I forgot to highlight this in red. Yes. Expenses. Expenses of the audit shall be determined by CIT or CCIT, but it shall be paid by government. Determined by CIT, CCIT, paid by government. Okay, now, still this section is not over. Still we are into 142 2A only. But now what we have to study? Directions given by AO are subject to conditions. Means assessing officer can issue a direction to the assessee asking him to get his accounts audited. But to send a direction to the assessee, there are 3 conditions to be fulfilled. Who has to fulfill the condition? Assessing officer. Don't forget, it is the assessing officer who is issuing the direction. So assessing officer has to satisfy 3 conditions before issuing the directions. So see, what are the 3 conditions? First condition is, again there is a short form here, NPO. First condition is N. N for necessary. The AO should consider the audit necessary. Then only he can send a direction to the assessee to get his accounts audited. So what does the first condition say? N for necessary means only if the AO considers the audit necessary. Well, it should not be just for the sake of wasting the time. AO should feel that audit is must. Only if he feels the necessity, he can ask the assessee to get his accounts audited. You know what is the logic of putting such condition? Basically, what law is indirectly trying to say, don't harass the assessee for no reasons. Otherwise, assessing officer is also human being like us. Sometimes the AO might be whimsical. What he might do, he just to harass the people, he will keep sending directions to the assessee. You get your accounts audited, you also get your accounts audited, you also get audited. He is asking everyone to get audited, even if it is not necessary. So that can amount to harassment. So that is what law is saying. Okay, dear assessing officer, we have given you power, but that power should not be misused. Only if you feel it is necessary, then ask the assessee to get your accounts audited. See, this will just create a moral responsibility on assessing officer. Otherwise, if law doesn't mention such condition, the AO might become casual. And see, although we think assessing officer, he is working government department. See, government department, that doesn't mean he is a good person. He can be a bad person also. After all, assessing officer is a human being like us. And who knows, that human being is not a normal human being. He might be whimsical. So it might happen that he can start harassing the assessee. Usually that is not the case, but law thinks that it should not amount to harassment on general public. That's why law has put a condition. What condition? Only if the AO considers the audit is necessary, then he should ask the assessee to get his accounts audited by a CA nominated by CIT or CCIT. So what was the first condition? The AO should feel the audit is necessary. Next condition is P. There are three conditions: N, P, O. N for necessary. P for AO should take the permission of CIT, CCIT. AO should take the permission of CIT, CCIT. So see, actually you know how all this works. First imagine, assessee might have sent the RAI notice. In RAI notice, what is A? Accounts. See, imagine in the form of a story. Please imagine, first assessing officer might have asked the assessee to produce accounts. And after looking at the accounts, he felt the accounts are really hopeless. They are so complicated. I feel the necessity. Sometimes back I said necessary. So AO says, I feel the necessity of getting the accounts audited. So once he feels the necessity, he will talk to his boss and he will take his permission. His boss means CIT. His super boss is CCIT. He will ask his CIT or CCIT, Sir, I had asked one assessee to produce his accounts, but when I went through the accounts, I felt the audit is necessary. Should I ask him to get his accounts audited? If you give me the permission, then I will move on. That means there is a condition that before the AO sends a direction to the assessee requiring him to get his accounts audited, he has to first take the prior approval of CIT, CCIT. Again, the logic of permission is what you know? The AO should not misuse his power. Otherwise, an assessing officer, he might have the mentality of misusing the power, harassing the people. And you know why he feels like harassing the people and misusing? Bribes. Nowadays, the system of bribe doesn't work. Because nowadays, since Modi government is there, corruption has reduced. I will not say corruption has stopped, but it has been reduced to very nominal thing. But earlier, there was a culture of bribe. You know, assessing officer might be thinking, in order to get the bribes from the assessee, let me start harassing him. And once you start harassing some genuine person, he can take the bribes from them. Means this used to be the culture earlier. Nowadays, this bribe culture is very less. But whatever, an assessing officer may have undue harassment on the assessee. To avoid that thing, law says, don't misuse your power. We have given you the power, but that power is subject to prior approval from your boss. Only if your boss permits. And you know, when their permission is involved, the AO cannot misuse his power. But you know, sometimes along with AO, his boss is also like this. AO is also psycho. His boss is also whimsical. They are all fools. They keep harassing people. So for that, there is no solution. But usually that will not be the case. If assessing officer has to take the permission, so usually his permission, his boss will be a person of integrity. He will not stoop so low that along with AO, he will also start doing harassment with the people. But anyway, some control has to be there so that AO does not misuse his power. So what was the next condition? P for permission. N for, firstly, AO should feel it is necessary. Inside he should feel it is necessary. And then once he feels necessary, he has to take permission of CIT, CCIT. And then third condition is, assessee should be given an opportunity of being heard. N, P, O. O for assessee should be given an opportunity of being heard. Means what you know, once the AO sends that letter is called what? Direction. After sending the direction, you know, assessee would want to talk to AO. Why assessee would want to talk to AO? Because assessee might feel, why the hell this audit? I had already got my audit done before filing the return. Why this audit? He wants to know the reason. For that, assessee feels like talking to AO. And usually what happens? As soon as assessee receives the letter directing him to get his accounts audited, he will immediately rush to income tax department. He will personally go to income tax department and he will sit in front of assessing officer saying that why audit. He has got the right to ask the reasons from assessing officer. Okay, sir, why should I get my accounts audited? You give me the reason. Now, when assessee asks the AO such question, it is the duty of AO to reply. Means AO has to reply him, because of so and so reason, dear, I want your audit to be done. Means that communication should happen. Means assessing officer should not behave like this. It is my order. Who are you to ask me that why audit is necessary? I have decided. That's final. I said you have to do it. That means you have to do it. You don't ask me. So this way you cannot impose on the assessee. Assessee has got right to know why suddenly audit direction has been issued. And if assessee has some questions, he should be answered and he should be heard. That's what I meant to say by opportunity of being heard. What do you mean by opportunity? Opportunity means he should be given a chance. A chance where he is heard. See, law is not saying he should be given a chance to speak. See, there is a difference between chance to speak and chance to be heard. What is the difference? If law says he should be given a chance to speak, then what will happen? What AO will say, okay, you want to speak something, you speak. I'll go out and have some tea and come. You speak. You want to speak something, you speak in this lonely cabin. I am going out. Imagine assessee has visited AO's cabin. So if law would have said assessee should be given a chance to speak, then he will keep speaking. What if AO doesn't hear him? So what law says? It should not be that assessee is speaking. You have to hear him. Understand what assessee is trying to say. And sometimes there is some misunderstanding. And because of misunderstanding, AO suddenly felt the necessity of audit. So that misunderstanding can be sorted out by a good communication. And a good communication is a good communication when the other person is heard. And if other person simply speaks and I don't pay heed to that, that means not a good communication. Huh? So what law says, you have to hear the other party also, means assessee. Because although AO might have felt necessary, the audit is must. But then it is one-sided feeling. Na? He might be having some misunderstanding about the assessee. And usually IT department has got full misunderstanding about people. That people are like this only, they are fraud, everyone having black money and this and that. They always think negatively for general public. So that can be a case that assessing officer might have misunderstanding. That's what law said, don't depend upon your misunderstanding. If assessee wants to talk to you, talk to him and he should be heard. So that if there is some misunderstanding, it can be sorted out. And sometimes when assessee talks to AO, the misunderstanding is sorted out and the plan of audit is dropped. And suddenly AO says, okay, that was the case. I thought so and so is the case, so I felt something is fishy and all that. But now I am clear. It's okay, you don't do the audit. That rarely happens. But there is a chance that misunderstanding can be sorted out. So this is called giving opportunity of being heard. You know what I am discussing? AO has got power, but he has got 3 duties. Power is to order assessee to get his accounts audited. But what are his 3 duties? NPO. First N means AO should feel the audit is necessary. P stands for he should take the permission of CIT, CCIT. And third, when assessee comes to him and he wants to talk, he wants to communicate, let him communicate and he should be given a chance to be heard. So these are the 3 conditions which assessing officer has to fulfill. That means if assessing officer do not pay attention to this three condition, simply he is using the power and asking if the assessee to get his accounts audited, the assessing officer is wrong. And you know, in exam they ask the question like this only. They will create a situation where assessing officer did not pay attention to these three conditions. Which three conditions? Which three conditions? NPO. AO should feel necessary, AO should take permission, he should provide opportunity being heard to the assessee. So in exam what they do, they create a question wherein assessing officer did not pay attention to this NPO conditions, and they will ask in the exam a question to the student. What is the opinion of the student? They will ask the opinion that whether assessing officer is valid in doing this or not. They will ask your opinion, but question will be such where AO has not fulfilled NPO conditions, and they will test that knowledge. For example, the question might say AO felt the audit was necessary, he took the permission, he sent a direction, but then when assessee came to assessing officer, he didn't give an opportunity being heard to the assessee, and the contention of AO is why opportunity being heard is required. Since I consider audit is necessary, audit has to be done. Means they will create a question wherein AO is having a contention, he is contending that opportunity is not needed. And then they will test the students. Students answer whether the contention of the AO is valid. So what will you write? It is not valid, because as per law, opportunity of being heard should be given to the assessee. And if AO is not providing opportunity being heard to the assessee, the direction issued by him under 142 2A is invalid. It means I am trying to explain what kind of question comes in the exam and how this knowledge will be useful. They will create a question situation based, and there you have to answer based on this knowledge. You know, we are into this direction wala point. In direction there are three conditions: N, P, O. N for necessary, P for permission, O for opportunity of being heard. Okay, now see, still the theory is going on. Have patience. You know, in NPO what was N? In NPO what was N? The AO should consider the audit as necessary. So you know, assessing officer will always say, I felt the audit is necessary. Now who will decide whether it was really necessary or not? See, law will say, AO, please don't harass people. Only if you feel the audit is necessary, then ask the people to get their accounts audited. Don't harass them. You should feel necessary. So tell me, a person who is insane, even if it's not necessary, what will he say? I felt it was necessary. Please imagine a person like an assessing officer, he wants to harass only someone. He wants to harass the assessee. So he can always say, I felt the audit is necessary. So what is the criteria for whether it was really necessary or not? That's what I am explaining now. So whether the audit is really necessary or not, for that also law has given some criteria. There are some criteria which we will see, which I will speak right now. Only if these criteria are satisfied, then if AO says the audit was necessary, AO is right. So now what I will explain, what is the criteria to decide whether the audit was really necessary or not. So see, there are 5 criteria, and the keyword is NV Daman. How will you pronounce this? NV Daman. You know, in NV Daman, one by one I will talk about some criteria, and these criteria can prove yes, the audit was really necessary. That means unless this NV Daman criteria is met, the condition of N from NPO is not satisfied. Means to satisfy the condition of N means necessary, you have to satisfy NV Daman. Now let me say the full form, then you'll understand. Wait. Look at this. Don't forget we are in the point of direction. To issue direction, I said there are three conditions: N, P, O. Now, can you see I have highlighted the alphabet N in black? Because now I am going deep into N. N for necessary. And the criteria for necessary is NV Daman. Now, what is this interest or revenue? Right now, don't focus on this. Let me first complete NV Daman. Okay? In NV Daman, N stands for nature and complexity of accounts. Nature and complexity of accounts. What do you mean by complexity? Complex is opposite to simple. See, sometimes the accounts are so simple and straightforward. So, if the accounts are so simple and straightforward, everything is crystal clear in the accounts, then audit is not necessary. But now think opposite. The accounts are not simple, they are so complex and complicated, and there is no clarity only what is there in the accounts. Which balance is carried forward, which balance is brought forward. Just for example, balance carried down, brought down. Means AO is feeling that accounts are so complicated and there is no clarity what is going on in the accounts. So if that is the case, the AO can say audit is necessary. Means one criteria of feeling the account necessary is complications. What law says? Nature and complexity of the account. This is a full form of N. I am explaining the full form of NV Daman. NV Daman. So what is N? Nature and complexity of the accounts. See, nature is okay, but the main word is complexity. If there is complexity, means the accounts are not simple and straightforward, it is complicated. And then if AO says the accounts are so complicated, the audit is obviously necessary, then AO is right. You know, sometimes there are cases in the court on this. High Court, Supreme Court, there are cases where, you know, assessee is fighting for what? Audit was not necessary. Then why the hell I was asked to get my accounts audited? Imagine there is a case going on. Case between assessee on one hand and assessing officer on other hand. And what is the argument of assessee? The audit was ordered to me for no reason. It was useless. Even if it was not necessary, unnecessary, I am asked to get my accounts audited. This is the argument of assessee. So in such case, AO can prove it was not necessary. It was necessary. See your accounts, they are not simple, they are complicated. So if AO can raise the point of complication in front of the judge, if AO can raise the point of complications and the complexity, then AO is right. AO will win the case. For every small direction under 142 2A, cases do not go to the court. I am just creating a situation of court, you know, just to understand the importance of the provision. Otherwise, 99% what happens? Once AO sends a direction, people nicely do the accounts audited. Rarely anyone argues. But let's imagine 1%, if a person argues, then how will AO prove himself right in front of the judge? Tell me, how will he prove? To prove AO himself is right, you know, he will have to prove the accounts were complicated. So this was NV Daman ka N. N for nature and complexity. Then V stands for volume of accounts. V for volume. Now imagine there is a case going on in a court and assessee is arguing, for no reason I was asked to get my accounts audited. Why should I get my accounts audited? The AO is mad, he is fool. So in such case, how will AO prove himself right? You know, AO will say, I didn't ask you to get your accounts audited for no reason. I had a reason. See the volume of your accounts. See the volume. People's books of accounts run into some 100 200 pages, but your books of accounts are running into 10,000 pages, 20,000 pages. The accounts is so voluminous. So such a huge volume of accounts, obviously I will feel the necessity of audit. So if AO can prove the volume, then also AO is right. Imagine there is an argument between assessee and AO in front of the judge in the court. But literally don't think that every time assessee goes to a court, out of 1,000 people, hardly one person will argue and take the matter to the court. Why should I get my accounts audited? See, people don't have time to fight the case and all that. But just for the sake of understanding, I am creating an ambience of court, judge, etc. so that I can explain the provisions. So what were the criteria? NV Daman. Ended N for? See, basically NV Daman is nothing but what you know. These are the points with which AO can prove that I am right in asking you to get your accounts audited. So what is the first point? Nature and complexity of the accounts. Complexity means the accounts are not simple, complicated. So audit is must. V, volume. D, next alphabet D, doubts about the correctness in the accounts. Doubts about the correctness of the accounts means assessing officer can say, see this journal entry, and after this see this journal entry. Looking at this multiple journal entries, I feel there is some incorrect thing. I don't feel the accounts are correct. Means sometimes the sequence of the journal entries and ledger accounts is such that it can create a doubt about the correctness. So if AO can raise a point that I don't feel your accounts are correct, but he should have some points also to say. Means if he is standing in front of the judge, he should have some one or two instances which can prove, see this is incorrect, see this is incorrect. So if 2-3 entries are incorrect, I to have a doubt that accounts are totally incorrect. So that doubts about the incorrectness can also become a valid point which can prove that AO is right in asking the assessee to get his accounts audited. 3 points I said. NV Daman. NV Daman. Keep biting. What was N? Nature and complexity of accounts. V, volume of accounts. D, doubts about the correctness in accounts. Doubts about the correctness in accounts. You know, these are the sword of AO with which he can say I am right. Then what is the next alphabet? NV Daman. Next alphabet is M. M stands for multiplicity of the transactions in the accounts. Guess what is this? Multiplicity of the transactions in the accounts. Is imagine assessing officer is behind a coaching class. Coaching class means some coaching class case is taken up for audit. Now, usually a coaching class will have repeatedly fees from students kind of income. A coaching class will have what kind of income? Fees from students, fees from students, fees from students. But you know what assessing officer noticed? That a coaching class is repeatedly getting some commission income. Every 2-3 days he is finding some commission entry in the books of accounts. Because it is a books of a coaching class. Imagine books of a coaching class. For example, my coaching class, Prime Vision, Professional Education. So obviously in my books of accounts, what is expected? Fees from students will be a repeated entry. In the books of accounts of coaching class, what can you expect? Fees from students. If that entry comes in multiples, so it is understood. It's digestible. But imagine in the books of accounts of a coaching class, what AO noticed? Commission received. And that commission received entry is not just one day. It is in multiples. Every 2-3 days, assessing officer has noticed one entry of commission received. So he thought, why this commission? This assessee is into a coaching business, so they should have repeatedly fees from students kind of income. But why commission income? Commission income has got no connection with the business of a coaching class. Okay, we understand once in a while some commission received entry is there, it's understandable. But the entry of commission is in multiples, multiplicity. This is called multiplicity. This multiplicity makes him feel something is fishy. See, multiplicity of some awkward transaction. See, if in my books of accounts, he notices every day I am receiving fees from students. So, fees from students entry is also in multiples, but that is okay because my business is to teach students. So, getting fees from students and having such entry in multiples, it is understandable. But for a coaching class, having commission received entry in multiples, that creates a doubt. So that was the next point. Multiplicity of a transaction. Which transaction in my example? Commission. In the books of accounts. And in the books of accounts of coaching class. Okay, chalo, if I am an agent only, my business is of agency only, then commission received entry in multiples is understandable. Huh? So this was the next point in NV Daman. N, V, D, M. Last alphabet is N. Nature of business. Sometimes the nature of business is such that you feel audit is must. You know, there are certain businesses, there is high chances of having black money. Like imagine the business of construction, real estate business. You know, these days, nowadays, these builders and construction companies, when they sell the flat, what they do? If the flat is sold for 2 crores, many times half of the money they take in check and half of the money they take in cash. Means this is a common culture in real estate business which people know. So what assessing officer thinks? The business is such that there is high chances of manipulation. So for such business, we cannot leave them. For them, the audit is must. But certain businesses are such that it's very difficult to doubt that people. For example, coaching class. It is very difficult to doubt the coaching class because coaching class people have to deal with students. And usually there is no manipulation and holding of black money by a coaching class. Usually. Because usually we have to deal with students. And students will usually pay the fees in check. We cannot expect from a student give us fees in cash because fees is just a nominal amount. But when a builder has to deal with his clients and customer, the transaction are in crores. So there is a tendency of taking some amount in cash. So such businesses are risky business. So if the business is risky, then also if AO says audit was must, the AO is right. Next point is about what? The nature of the business is such. Construction line, which anyone can doubt. That in construction line there is a tendency of taking the money in cash. So this way there are other lines also, but construction and real estate business is very popular. Where I can illustrate that there are chances of black money. So for such cases also audit is necessary. You know what did I explain? NV Daman are the various criterias due to which if AO considers the audit is necessary, then AO is right. See whether AO is right or wrong, that kind of question they ask in exam. That is why I am putting my efforts to teach you. Otherwise, why will I teach you? In the exam only their agenda is what? To put questions where they will ask students whether AO is right or wrong. And how will you decide whether AO is right or wrong? AO will be right. AO will be right. Firstly, satisfies 3 condition NPO. And even for the N, he has to satisfy any one from NV Daman. Any one. See, NV Daman were various criterias which can make the AO feel the audit is necessary. But that doesn't mean all the criteria should be fulfilled. Anything from NV Daman, if any one factor also makes AO feel the audit is necessary, then AO is right. But then just by considering the audit necessary is not sufficient. You have to take the permission of CIT, CCIT also. And you also have to take the assessee in confidence by talking to him and giving him an opportunity of being heard. See, one more thing. Actually, we are discussing what NPO, in that NPO N. For N, there are again two conditions. NV Daman, and one more thing is there, interest of revenue. What do you mean by interest of revenue? Benefit of government. See, revenue means IT department. IT department is usually addressed as revenue. So whenever I say in the interest of revenue, means in the interest of government's IT department. So what do you mean by interest of revenue here? Benefit of government means what? In this context, benefit of government means what? See, what law says, look, audit should be felt necessary only if it is going to benefit government. To hell with NV Daman also. To hell with NV Daman also. If AO thinks that after the audit is done, government is not going to get benefited, then it is a useless activity, don't do it. This is what law says. Many times the AO becomes so much sensitivized. NV Daman, I feel the audit is necessary. But then what law expects from AO? Relax. Make a calculation. You estimate, in case the audit is done, in case we come to know the true net profit of the assessee, what will be the additional tax liability? What will be the consequence of audit? If audit is done, a true net profit will come out. And a true net profit will give us the true tax liability. And after knowing the true tax liability, if AO feels yes, government will benefit, then only he should waste his time. Otherwise, sometimes the AO are so sentimental related to NV Daman. NV Daman, volume, multiplicity, doubts. But they forget to measure whether it will ultimately benefit government or not. Benefit in terms of money. And how money is expected from audit? How money is expected from audit? Because if audit is done, there are chances that a real net profit will be decided. Because see, why are we getting the accounts audited? Because we don't trust the accounts. So, but when a chartered accountant nominated by CIT, CCIT will do the audit, he will find out the real net profit. And there are high chances that the original profit which was shown as 5 lakhs has become 2 crores. Means associate originally shown the net profit of 5 lakhs. Now it turned to 2 crores. So suddenly net profit shoots up to 2 crores. The tax liability will shoot up and that will benefit government. And if that benefit is expected, then only AO should waste his time in using this power. Basically, law means to say, see AO, just because you have got power, don't dance on your power. Use your power wisely. You have to see that after exercising the power of getting the accounts audited, government should benefit. Otherwise, you are wasting your time also, assessor's time also, and that poor chartered accountant's time also. Everyone is doing the work, but ultimately no one is gaining. That should not happen. So this is also a responsibility of the AO to check. So finally tell me, if I am AO, what are my duties? Theory is over. Tell me, if I am AO, what are my duties? Imagine I am assessing officer and I want some assessee's accounts to be audited. So tell me, what are my duties? Start NPO. Duties means NPO. and within N, NV Daman and interest or revenue. Okay, so line start in that line. So imagine I am assessing officer. So what are my duties? First duty is NPON. N means I should feel necessary. And to feel necessary means first I have to ask for the accounts also. Huh? How will I get the accounts of the assessee in my hand? By sending RAI notice. Forgot RAI notice? In RAI notice what was A? Accounts. So see, it is assumed that first I should have called for the accounts. Because see, in absence of the accounts, I to only have the return of the assessee. In return also there are final accounts. But in return, detailed accounts are not there. Na? In the ITR which people file, there are account data, final account, sales, GP, वगैरह, etc. But then detailed accounts are not there. So first you have to imagine, first AO should have called for accounts, then NPO starts. Now, after going through the accounts, he might have got the feeling of NV Daman, nature and complexity, volume, doubts, multiplicity of the transaction accounts, nature of the business, build a real estate business, all lafde wala. So first I will get the feeling of NV Daman. Then I will calculate. Okay, let's assume if I ask this assessor to get his accounts audited, what can be the expected net profit? I have to just estimate. And I feel definitely his profit will be doubled and tripled. Then if your profit is going to be doubled or tripled, there are chances of revenue coming to government. Matlab government will be benefited. Yes, once I get this feeling, NPO ka N is satisfied. Now I will go to my boss CIT or my super boss CCIT. I will take his permission and I will talk to him in what sense, sir, that assessee, I called for his accounts. I went through the accounts. I am having a strong feeling of NV Daman. And I have measured that once we get his accounts audited, there are chances that we will get some tax from him. I did all that activity. Sir, if you tell me, if you give me the permission, I will send a letter to him. I will take permission of who? CIT or CCIT. And if now CIT will check, tell me what NV Daman is there. What kind of NV Daman? He will also get convinced. Oh yes, volume of accounts. Audit is must. It's a good idea. Go ahead. Means he will give me a green signal. Then I will send, now after getting the permission, first I will send a letter. And after assessee receives the letter, he will come to income tax office. And then in the income tax office, there will be communication. And in that communication, first assessee will ask, why the hell audit? Then AO should give him a chance to speak and he should be heard. If I do all these things systematically, then I am right. And in exam, basically they test your right and wrong knowledge only. They will give a situation and you have to judge whether AO is right or wrong. So AO will be right when he does like this, as I said right now. Finally, spatial audit is done. See, you might be thinking there is so much to study. Sir is non-stop teaching and teaching. But value one thing. I have included the entire theory in one single chart. If you see this thing in a bare act, it is written on and on. It runs into pages. Not 10-20 pages, but at least 2-3 pages. It is given at length. But everything has been compiled in the form of a chart. So while studying for the first time, obviously you will feel little bit heavy. Because there is so much to say. But then trust me, once you have patience, after studying, you will feel everything is so compact. Everything has come into this. Everything which I have taught right now today, everything is there inside the chart. Recap, fast recap. First give me the okay, start from the top only. Wait, before that one more thing. In NV Daman, look at the screen, at the bottom of the screen. I am putting a plus sign. Means what, Plus means what? AO has to satisfy NV Daman also. and he has to satisfy interest or revenue also. Both the conditions are to be satisfied. But see, whether he has checked government will be benefited or not, for this there is no criteria to judge. This is just a moral responsibility. For example, when I expect from you, please study, whether you are studying or not, there is no proof for me. I can create a moral responsibility that please you should study at home. But I will never come to know whether you are really studying or not. Similarly, for law also, law has created a moral duty on the assessee that please beta, you check that government should be benefited, then only do all this activity. But whether he has really done that or not, there is no proof of that. Just the way I never have the proof whether you are really studying at home or not, but still I expect that you study. I am just trying to create a moral responsibility. So here also it is kind of that only. Okay, whether AO has checked what, that government will be benefited or not by getting the accounts audited, whether he has really checked or not, that is just a moral duty cast on him. But whatever, in exam you have to remember there are two conditions. Two means, look, one, anything from NV Daman should be there. Second, government should be benefited by the audit. Then only audit can be said to be necessary. Means to call it necessary, there are internally two conditions. So now tell me from the beginning, start from this. Start. As per, literally you have to by heart this. Huh? As per section 142(1), the AO can send a notice. See, observe one thing. Here I have used the word notice. Here I have used the word direction. What about 142(2)? There was no communication with assessee. Na? In 142(2), what is happening? AO is gathering information from other sources, and that other sources are not defined. It can be GST department, it can be he is talking to a supplier's customer, it is not definite. So there is nothing like notice, etc. But obviously when assessing officer talks to GST department, he will have a communication by way of some email, letter, etc. whatever. But law has not mentioned something like notice, because law itself has not defined what that other sources will be. But for a student, under 142(1), you should use the word notice. Under 142(2)(a), you should use the word direction. So start again. As per 142(1), the AO shall send a notice to the assessee requiring him to file the return if the same is not filed up to the due date, or produce accounts, or furnish such information as he may think fit or as he may require. Then 142(2), in order to obtain full information about the income of the assessee. You know, here I had stressed on the word full information, because under 142(1), this assessee might be giving incomplete informations. That's why law says you want full information, go do anything you want. So how does this section start? In order to obtain full information about the income of assessee, AO can make any such inquiry as he thinks fit. Law writes any such inquiry as he thinks fit. But back of the mind, you should think, your assessing officer is gathering information from other sources, not from the assessee. And assessee will not even come to know that his information is being gathered from various sources. Assessee never knows about this. And that is what the secret mission of income tax department, they will try to gather information from anywhere but without telling the assessee. So this is information from other sources. Then special audit. Here there are 4 points. Start. First point. As per this section, the AO shall send a direction to the assessee to get his accounts audited by A chartered accountant nominated by CIT or CCIT. Then C. It is compulsory to get his accounts audited even if the accounts are already audited. R. Report should be submitted by assessee to the AO within the time prescribed by AO. However, this time can be extended, but the total time should not exceed 180 days. Expenses of the audit shall be determined by CIT, CCIT, but it shall be paid by government. And then in this direction wala point, there were conditions. So how will you say this point? See the language, Direction. Notice the word direction. Direction issued by AO is valid provided following conditions are satisfied. Repeat. Direction issued under this section is valid provided following conditions are satisfied. Now in following condition, one by one, N, P, O. So what is N? The AO should consider the audit as necessary having regard to NB, Daman and interest of revenue. This is the actual text of N. N, P, O. So how will you say the point N? The AO should consider the audit as necessary having regard to NB, Daman and interest of revenue. Repeat again. The AO should consider audit as necessary having regard to NB, Daman and interest of revenue. फिर AO should take the permission of CIT, CCIT. O. AO should provide an opportunity of being heard to the assessee. And what was the full form of NB, Daman? NB, Daman, nature and complexity of accounts, volume of accounts, doubts about the correctness of the accounts, multiplicity of a transaction in the accounts. You remember that example? Coaching class receiving commission repeatedly. They are into coaching. Why the hell commission? Once or twice commission entry coming in the books, it's okay. But commission received entry is coming regularly, repeatedly in multiples. So that multiplicity can also create a doubt. Then Daman, MN. What was N? Nature of business. Sometimes the business is such that apparently it seems that they are all lafdewala. They are having definitely black money like construction, real estate business, etc. So this was NV Daman. One more thing. What was A in Rai? In Rai notice what was A? Accounts. So here what did I say? The assessing officer can call for your accounts. See, actually in the ITR, basic accounting data is there. Final account, trading, P&L, balance sheet. But sometimes you need detailed accounts. Detailed schedule of loans and advances, etc. Sometimes you need detailed accounts. So here in Rai notice he is asking for detailed accounts. But he can ask for accounts of the current year and at the most preceding 3 years. 3 years is a fixed rule. What law says? Assessing officer, if you want the accounts from the assessee, you should ideally demand the accounts of that year only for which the return was filed. Means demand the accounts for the current year only. But in case you want accounts of past, so maximum 3 past years accounts can be demanded. This authority AO has got. And you know why will he need preceding year's account? Actually he is targeting the current year, the year for which you filed the return. His focus is on that only. But sometimes you know current year accounts figures have got relation with preceding year. Best silly example, closing stock of last year is opening stock of this year. So there is a connection. Opening stock of this year can be verified by looking at the closing stock of last year, because it is a well settled rule that opening stock of this year should be the same which was the closing stock of last year. Basically, I am just trying to make you feel that there is connection. So sometimes because of that connection, the AO may need accounts of preceding years also. And he is having the authority call for accounts of preceding years, but maximum 3 years. So ideally he will be demanding accounts for the current year only, the year for which you had filed a return. But at the most, if he needs accounts of past, he will ask for maximum 3 immediate preceding years. It's not any 3 years from the past. Immediately preceding 3 years accounts he can demand. You know, these questions they ask in exam. They create a situation where AO is asking for accounts of preceding 10 years, preceding 5 years, and then they will ask whether AO is right or wrong. Half of the question in the paper are like this only, whether this is right or wrong, whether this is right or wrong. But to know right or wrong, you should know the law. And that's what I'm teaching. Notice. In 142.1 notice, the AO asked the assessee to produce the accounts of the current year and preceding 5 years. And assessee is not ready to furnish the accounts of preceding 5 years, stating that AO cannot ask the accounts for preceding years. When he is doing scrutiny on my current year, he should ask accounts of only current year. He cannot ask accounts of preceding 5 years. Means they will create an argument situation in the exam. And you will be expected to say what's right. So tell me, what will you write in this case? First you have to write the legal text. As per section 142.1, the AO can send a notice to the assessee requiring him to furnish the accounts, but he can ask for accounts of maximum 3 preceding years. And since in the given case, the AO is asking for accounts of 5 years, the notice issued by AO is not valid. I am just illustrating how the questions come. Because see, ultimately, why are we struggling for all this? Because we want to prepare ourselves for the 3 hours examination. So you should know also how the questions come. Because just by learning the provision without knowing how they are going to test us, it is waste of discussion. Okay. So you should know how they ask. And in my today's lecture, I have repeatedly hammered, always the question focuses on what is right, what is wrong. But you know, many times students, what they do, their way of answer is what? AO is right, assessee is right, AO is wrong. You cannot simply write right and wrong. First you have to state the legal provision. For that I am expecting you to memorize. So memorize. Say once again fast, very fast. Fast track. 142.1. As per this section, the AO can send a notice to the assessee requiring him to file the return if the same is not filed up to the due date. Produce the accounts of maximum 3 preceding years can be demanded, or to furnish such information as he may require. This way you should be able to state in exam. As per section 142.2, in order to obtain full information about the income of the assessee, the AO can make any such inquiry as he thinks fit. 142.2a, there are 4 points. D, C, R, A, Dakre. In the D, as per this section, the AO can send a direction to the assessee requiring him to get his accounts audited by a CA nominated by CIT or CCIT. Over. C, audit under this section is compulsory even if the accounts are already audited. Report. Report should be submitted. Report of audit should be submitted by assessee to AO within the time prescribed by AO. However, this time can be extended, but the total time should not exceed 180 days. Expenses of the audit, including the remuneration of CA, shall be determined by CIT, CCIT, and it shall be paid by government. Then in this direction wala point, there were condition NPO. So how will you speak those conditions? Direction under this section is valid Only following three conditions are satisfied. Condition number one, the AO should consider the AO should consider the audit as necessary, having regard to envy, daman, and interest of revenue. Create a chart in your mind like this. AO should consider the audit as necessary, having regard to envy, daman, and interest of revenue. This is first condition. Then AO should take the permission of CIT, CCIT. Then next condition, AO should provide an opportunity of being heard to the assessee. And then lastly, what is the full form? Envidaman, nature and complexity of accounts, volume of accounts, doubts about the correctness in accounts, multiplicity of the transaction in accounts, nature of business. Tell me, this 142 inquiry, precisely at what time it takes place in your life? Once the due date has gone, due date of filing the return. During this period, anything can happen from section 142. Anything means maximum there are three things happening. 142.1, write notice. 142.2, information from other sources. 142.2a, special audit. So these things which I had explained, this happens at what time? At this time. So this timing also you should know. Because see, whatever inquiry under 142 AO is doing, what is his ultimate objective? Whatever inquiry is doing, what is his ultimate objective? To find out the true income of the assessee so that he can make the assessment. Don't forget, see, after inquiry he has to do assessment. So inquiry is a preliminary preparation. Inquiry is just a preparation, but his main objective is to do assessment. And doing assessment means on a piece of paper he will compute your 5 heads of income. But that computation he can do only when he knows the true income. And for knowing the true income, he is doing inquiry. Means what I mean to say, understand the flow. This is a flow only. See this, flow chart. Means first you file the return, then inquiry is kind of a preparation to know the true income. And ultimate objective is assessment only. What is the name of AO? Assessing officer. When the name is assessing, obviously his work is assessing. So assessing is the main target. And to assess means to compute the income. But then computation can be done when he knows the real income. And to know the real income, he is doing the inquiry. Because return never reveals the real income. Return, ITR, might not reveal the real income. That's why we are dependent on the inquiry. But you know, sometimes the AO is so lazy. I don't want to do all this bullshit inquiry. He can ignore it. He can directly start doing assessment by calling the assessee in the office. Come to my office, let's have a conversation. And by talking to assessee, he'll do the assessment. That's what I said, na? 142 is not mandatory. It may happen, may not happen. These are the powers of AO, and power is such that if I want to use, I will use. If I don't want, I won't use the power. So 142 may not happen also. So many times what assessing officer does, after the return is filed, directly he will jump to assessment. But then assessment, for that he will call the assessee in the office. Exactly how it takes place, I have to yet explain. Assessment theory is pending, see. But right now what I mean to say, this 142 is not necessary. It may be done, it may not be done. If done, what can be done was this. Repeat what I said, 142 may be done, may not be done. If done, what can be done? This thing can be done. And at what time it can be done? At this time it can be done. Which time? This time. Okay, now, if assessee fails to reply to this notice, which notice? 142.1, where he was asked to furnish the return, produce accounts, furnish information as AO thinks fit. So if assessee fails to reply, actually you have to reply within the time stated in the notice. See, whenever income tax office gives you a notice, they always mention a time that within this time you have to reply. But then within that time you should reply, na? In case assessee does not reply, he has to pay 10,000 penalty under section 272A. Penalty under section 272A for not replying to RAI notice. Also, if you don't reply or if you don't get your accounts audited as required by direction under section 142(2)A, then also there will be a penalty of 10,000 under the same section 272A. And apart from this monetary penalty, you know what will be the other consequence? AO will just discard your return in a dustbin, and on a piece of paper he will compute the income according to his judgment. Best judgment assessment is also one consequence of not replying to 142(1) and 142(2)A. One is monetary fine of 10,000 under section 272A. Other thing is, for such people who don't reply to RAI notice and who don't get the accounts audited as directed, for such assessors, you know what AO will do? He will simply ignore your return. You might have filed a return, but he will simply ignore the return and he will compute your income according to his judgment. And that is risky, because his judgment will be always on higher side. Because even if your income is 1 lakh, he will say 5 lakhs. It's 5 crores, he will say 7 crores. Because obviously assessing officer is working for government. He will try to favor government so that government gets more and more taxes. So that chances are there, na? Although the law says your judgment should be best, it should be honest. You cannot harass the assessor here. It should be genuinely computed income. But we also know practically what happens when assessing officer works for government. He will try to favor government only by getting the more tax from the assessee, and which is bad for the assessee, na? And if assessee doesn't want this, please reply to notice under 142(1) and direction under 142(2)A. What was the amount of penalty? It's 10,000 per default. You know what is written in the act? 10,000 per default. Means for each default. So you know your maximum how many defaults you can make. When I say per default, we need to count how many defaults are possible. R, A, I, audit, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 defaults are possible. You didn't realize one thing. Although we call this notice as RAI notice, but actually within RAI there are 3 different notices and they are all different. What does R say? File the return. It's a different notice. And what is A in RAI? Produce accounts. This is a different notice. You know, in real life there are 3 different letters. R, A, I. So there can be 3 possible defaults. Means imagine an assessee to whom I have sent a notice to file the return. He didn't reply. Then I asked him to furnish the accounts. He didn't submit. Then I asked him to furnish some information. That also he didn't reply. Then I asked him to get him audited. That also he didn't reply. So this way maximum how many defaults you can commit? 4. R, A, I and audit. Not doing the audit is also one default. So there are how many defaults? 4. Means maximum there can be 4 default, and for each default 10,000 is the penalty under section 272A. But penalty is just okay. Penalty can also be tolerated. But what you will not be able to tolerate is the best judgment assessment done by you. Because God knows what kind of judgment He will apply and what income He will compute. It might happen that you expected your income to be 10-12 lakhs, but He will compute 25 lakhs. And then there is no solution. At the most, you can file an appeal. You can file an appeal in case AO applies some judgment in an ad hoc manner. Any guesswork he does and he imposes a huge tax liability. You have got right to file the appeal. But then appeal, litigation, it is a very complicated process. So why you want to go into that? It's better to avoid only best judgment. If you want to avoid that AO should not apply his judgment, please comply to notice under 142.1 and direction under 142.2a. So see, this was the next thing I explained. Look, not looking. If RAI notice under section 142.1 or direction under 142.2a, if there is non-compliance means assessor is not replying to that, he is not doing what is asked, then penalty under section 272a, 10,000 per default. So this was the last thing I explained. Next, two more things and then lecture is over. There is one latest amendment in this, latest for May 24 attempt and November 24 attempt also, that now this 142.2a has got two types of direction. One direction is requiring the assessor to get his accounts audited. But now there is one more amendment that AO can also direct the assessee to get his stock valued by a cost accountant. Latest amendment. Earlier under section 142.2a, only one typical direction was given. Get your accounts audited, get your accounts audited, get your accounts audited. But now as per the latest amendment, the AO has got right to issue two varieties of directions. One direction is for getting your accounts audited by a chartered accountant. Another direction is to get your stock valued by a cost accountant. In income tax assessment, there is importance of stock also. And there are assessors having crores of stock. And the amount of stock has got direct impact on your profits. Simple example, imagine a trading account. How do you visualize a trading account? Opening stock on debit side, credit side, closing stock. And with the help of stocks, our gross profit and net profit is decided, And see, we might think stock is silly. But for some big assessee, there is crores of stock. And stock's value has an impact on profit. So that's why sometimes the AO feels such a huge stock, it's better that it should be valued. And here also, even if assessor says, no, I got my stock value done, still you have to do it again. Means rest all provision is same. The cost accountant will be nominated by CIT, CCIT. Report should be submitted within the time prescribed by AO. Such time can be extended, but the total time should not exceed 180 days. Expenses of the stock valuation done by cost accountant shall be determined by CIT, CCIT, paid by government. I am saying fast because everything is same. What I have been explaining till now for audit, same thing applies for stock valuation. The only difference is audit will be done by chartered accountant, stock will be valued by cost accountant. So this is a new amendment. Okay. Last point. Try one question here. What is RAI notice? What is 142.1? RAI notice. In RAI notice, what is R? Return. Means in R, they send you a notice requiring you to file the return. Try this example. An assessing officer had sent RAI notice on this date, and precisely in RAI notice he is asking the assessee to file the return. And you know what assessee is saying? I will not file the return. Return can be filed latest up to... Wait. Again, let me repeat. Imagine assessing officer had sent a RAI notice requiring the assessee to file the return. I am talking about filing the return. And that notice was sent, say for example on this date. Let me write here, notice requiring the assessee to file the return. And you know what is the response of the assessee? I will not file the return. Why should I file the return? Because return can be filed latest up to 31st December of the AY, and that 31st December is gone. I will not file the return. This is the response of the assessee to assessing officer's notice. So tell me, is the response of the assessee right? Did you understand the question? Assessing officer had sent a RAI notice, and you know he sent the RAI notice in this period, means after the time of belated return expired. So assessing officer sending notice on this date, and assessee replying what? I will not file the return because 31st December has gone. So what is the point in filing the return? I will not file the return. So what is your stand in this case? So you know, in such case what you should say? That 31st December is the cutoff if you want to voluntarily file the return. A person wishes to file voluntarily. Voluntarily means on your own. If you want to file, you can file maximum up to 31st December. But in my example, is it assessee willing to file? Ke AO is demanding. AO is demanding, and AO has got right to demand your return any time. So in case AO sends, look, a notice on, look at the screen, notice on this date, you should reply. You cannot act like a fool saying that 31st December are gone. Arey boss, 31st December is a cutoff for people who wish to file on their own voluntarily. But when a notice comes, is it voluntary return ke demanded return? Demanded return can be demanded anytime. See, assessing officer has got authority, look, to do anything in this period, which I have highlighted in black color. Can you see this black patch? In this period, assessing officer can do anything which he wants. And you cannot question the assessing officer. How can you ask a return after 31st December? That means you cannot ask the AO to say, how can you ask the return after 31st December? 31st December is the latest date for belated. But see, that latest date is meant for people. People who want to file the return on their own. They have to stay in their limits. But why will government stay in their limits? This entire period belongs to assessing officer. He can rightfully demand your return anytime. So even if, look, even if on this day he is asking for your return, you have to submit a return. Conclusion, see one good chart, look, return voluntarily filed and demanded by AO. Complete the chart. Return voluntarily filed, demanded by AO. If it is voluntarily filed, then it can be filed latest up to 31st of December of the AY. But if it is demanded by AO, then AO can demand before December also, after December also, anytime during this patch. This is most important analysis. You know the question which I created right now, that look, assessing officer sent a notice on this date. Many students have the confusion. How come it is possible? Because we have heard that return can be filed latest up to 31st of December. So, people have got wrong notion that 31st December has got value for voluntarily filing. For example, if I want to file my return, then I have to be limited up to 31st December. But if assessing officer wants to conduct inquiry on me, so he can do any time, even after 31st December. So that's what the summary is. Look at the chart. This chart is very important according to me. So what does this chart say? Read. If the return is voluntarily filed, then firstly it is called return under which section? 139(1). And when you file the return online, if you, I don't know whether you've seen that website or not, there is one down arrow, drop down arrow, where if you drop down and see, there are various sections. That it is written under which section. So people who file voluntarily, they write 139(1). But when AO had demanded, and in response to that, if you file the return, so in that online return, in that drop down menu, you will see one section 142(1). You have to click on that. Means return is also named by a section. This is written by what section? That section identifies the nature. So when we say return is under 139(1), so that implies, oh, you had voluntarily filed, voluntarily. But if you say it was 142(1) return, so that implies what? That you didn't file on your own, na? So you might have got a notice, and in response to notice you filed a return. So remember the return with the section number also. So voluntary return is termed as return under 139(1), and return which is demanded by AO is, read the section, return under section 142(1). And what is the deadline? For voluntarily filing the return, latest up to 31st December of the AY. And for demanded return, return can be demanded even after. See, even after means, see, return can be demanded in this period also and this period also. Anytime AO can, you cannot control the AO saying that you cannot demand a return. Yes, once this period expires, which, that 12 months, after that he cannot ask you to file the return. Then if he asks you to file the return, just tear the letter. And obviously he will not even send such notice. But if you say AO that you cannot send me a notice, that you can say after the expiry of 12 months. After 12 months, he has got no right to send you a notice asking you to file the return of this previous year. Because after 12 months, everything becomes time barred. What did I say? It is called time barred. Time barred means time has elapsed. Time has expired. Nothing can be done now. Done. Finally, section 142 is done. So we have got 3 slides to remember. This is first slide, RAI notice, other sources, special audit, in that DACRE, D, C, R, E, and in D, NPO, and in N, NV Daman and interest or revenue. This was the first slide. Then what was this to highlight? 142 happens at what time? So I wanted to highlight the time. During this period 142 may happen. It may not happen also, but if it happens, it can happen in this time. Then I talked about the penalty. Then return voluntarily filed has a cutoff of 31st December. But if AO demands, he can demand the return even after 31st of December. So finally this completes what? This completes what? This thing. Look, inquiry. And if you look at the summary of the chapter, see the summary. Our chapter is in 4 parts. Part 1 returns, this is already done. Part 2 inquiry, this will finish today. Second part is done. Now the next part is again most important, that is assessment. Actual assessment process will start now. This is just preliminary preparation, you can say, because for assessment written is must, inquiry is must. Now actual assessment will start in the next lecture. Okay, this much you have to revise. Now for homework, after every video you need to do some sums so that you can make your concepts thorough. And for today I have got only 2 sums to allot.